with that, you know what's coming next. Are
Are
you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, keeping with the theme of the day, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that a wide receiver will lead Notre Dame in both receptions and yardage this season?
Scale of 1 to 10. I'll put it at a 5 out of 10. I think it's a 50-50. I think Notre Dame's going to have more of a wide receiver guy and honestly more of a reception guy. But if a true stud wide receiver develops, then it's going to be, you know what I mean? That's going to be the guy that's ultimately going to have yards and receptions. But like we talked about, I think Notre Dame has a stable of wide receivers and a lot of mouths to feed. So I think the ball is going to be spread around a lot. So I do think you're going to have two different guys leading each.
So, but the question is, a wide receiver will lead Notre Dame in both receptions, and that doesn't mean it has to be the same receiver. I was making sure that I wrote this correctly.
Oh, I see.
I'm with DK. I'm at an 8. So it doesn't have to be the same receiver, just a wide receiver.
Oh, I'm 10 out of 10 then. I don't think a tight end is going to be your receptions guy.
Okay. All right. Again, I had to make sure that I wrote my own question right.
Sorry, no, I just can't read.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's not like it hasn't happened, to you, to me, to Vince, to whoever before. So I'm in because, again, this offense is not going to go through the tight end anymore. It's going to be much more downfield, especially with the kind of targets that they have. And this just circles back to, like, I actually wrote this question before I knew we were going to get 800 wide receiver questions in we out, but that's kind of how it's been the last couple of weeks. People are very interested in the wide receivers. And so I'm an 8, borderline 9. So I'll call it 8.5. I'm very confident that a wide receiver is going to be the leader in each of those categories. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava has better Heisman Trophy odds than Riley Leonard. I think I came pretty close on that, by the way. I think I came pretty close on saying
it's completely idiotic. We're talking about a guy who threw the ball 45 times last season, had 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. They essentially believe that a freshman is going to outperform, Riley Leonard. And I'm not trying to stand up here and say, Riley Leonard is this Heisman favorite and he's great and he's going to do all those things and he's just this absolutely stud quarterback. But at least Riley Leonard was on people's draft boards before he got injured. I don't understand how you can put someone ahead of Riley Leonard who has no experience, who was never in any draft conversations, discussions, evaluations, etc. So it's just pure idiocracy to me.
Idiocracy. All right. Ring the bell on that one, Jess. And I agree. Like, when I was looking through the Heisman odds, I'm like, what? This is a good player, but where's the experience? What are you basing?
Where's the rationale?
On? Yeah, and it's not like he plays for Alabama, where it would make sense if he's going to be high on the list, but he doesn't. He's going to plays for Tennessee. They're going to win at least a couple of games. They're not going to be a national championship contender. So I just don't see it. Iamaleava.
Well, he's got I agree. He's got a lot to prove because there is a lot of hype and expectations. But again, this guy has still at least been talked about in the circles of playing at a high level, being on people's draft boards. And it's not just one person's, it's across the board. There's real interest in him beyond the injuries.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Riley Leonard is going to win the Heisman. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying when you look at the Heisman odds, Leonard is not in the top 10 right now, but
Nico is.
That's right. It's easier to say Nico than the whole thing. And that's the point is just that it makes zero sense that a guy with Riley Leonard's experience coming to, again, maybe it's just that people don't believe. Maybe it's more than just recruits. Maybe it's that nobody believes in the offense that Notre Dame can put on the field. And they're just going to have to show everybody what it can be this season, which I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised in a lot of ways with what they see from it this season. So Notre Dame and the Miami Hurricanes used to play pretty much all the time in the 70s and 80s. From 1971 to 1990, they played in every year with the exception of 1986. When you consider that Miami is in the ACC and Notre Dame has this scheduling arrangement with the ACC, would you like to see the Fighting Irish play the Hurricanes more often?
Yeah, I would. And I kind of like this idea of, kind of Notre Dame's in a peculiar position right now because of all the conference realignments and staying independent and their ties to the ACC. I mean, they kind of, in a roundabout way, can, devise their own schedule to an extent, right? And so when you think about some of Notre Dame's old rivals, Miami, Florida State, some of those teams that they ran into in the 80s and 90s, I'm okay with them kind of cycling through them now and kind of restoring some of those old, rivalries, because us as fans still remember those games. And it's not like, Miami and Florida State are dumps of teams. Adding them to your schedule is going to boost them, right? They're still a good opponent overall. And I mean, Notre Dame, last time they played at Florida State, they lost. Last time they played at Miami in Hard Rock, I believe.
Remember, they won in 2021.
Okay, yeah, they won in 2021. But they it's not like they just, dominate these teams. They've had, Miami has had good teams that Notre Dame has struggled against. Same with Florida State. And so when you talk about, ways to kind of bring excitement to the schedule, I think that's a fun way to do it. Bringing back or rehashing some of these older rivalries that still have meaning and impact on some of the older fans.
Right. And as DK points out, Miami was supposed to be on the schedule because of their scheduling blunder. They are not this season, but it has still been since, what it was that, 2017, the last time that Notre Dame and Miami played. So even if it was going to be this year, you're still talking about 7 years in between games. I do believe they're going to pop up a little bit more regularly in the next few years, but I like what Sloppy Joe is saying. I like this. Like, I would take a home and home every 5 years so that every cycle, basically, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, the cycle of a college career, so that every cycle Notre Dame and Miami are playing on each other's field at least once in that time. I think that would make a lot of sense because, look, Miami, for whatever they are, and they are, they have been largely inconsistent. Miami, Florida State, and Clemson are the three most marquee teams in the ACC right now when it comes to football. And so I definitely think that Notre Dame needs to see them more often. And they did away, obviously, with the Notre Dame Miami series because it got so contentious with the fights in the tunnel and, everything else that was going on. It just got too nasty. Miami is a completely different kind of program since then. So I would like to see it more often, for sure. How about, I guess I just kind of brought this up, how about Florida State and Clemson? How regularly do they need to show up on Notre Dame's schedule?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of just rotating home and home every 2 years with each of them. Home and home Clemson, home and home Florida State,
right?
Home and home Miami, home and home back to Clemson, right? I think Clemson is naturally kind of emerged as a soft rivalry for Notre Dame. Kind of how you want to call it. They played each other in the regular season. They've played each other in the playoffs before. So I think they become, again, like this soft rival, and Notre Dame being, an ACC school outside of football, even though they play majority ACC teams, it just makes sense to me. And then that way you're just staying fresh. You're not the same stagnant team every year. And I think it gives the opportunity for those teams to also kind of, it levels out those ups and downs, because if a team is bad for 10 years straight, you don't want to play them. And so I think you give yourself a better chance of rotating between those three, of playing a team. There's a better chance that one of them is going to be good in a pool of three than a pool of one every 10 years. The
more often you play them. Right.
Yeah.
Like if you space it apart, it's like, who knows what you're ever going to get when it shows up. But I think that it makes perfect sense, kind of what you're saying. Just rotate through there's a season coming up, I think in a couple of years, where they play where Notre Dame is going to play both Florida State and Miami in the same season. So, like that's kind of cool to see that. But, again, like, I don't know that you necessarily need both of them in the same season, but if you just rotate through the three of these for Notre Dame, I think that would be a much more purposeful kind of functional use of that ACC agreement. Like, we still don't know to what extent Stanford is going to be bound to the ACC thing, or if Notre Dame is going to be able to kind of exempt them and keep them on every year. Again, we played the comment a couple of weeks ago from Bernard Meir, the Stanford athletic director, saying basically they've pretty much come to an agreement, but things just haven't been signed yet, that's going to continue. But, again, we don't know, will that be part of the 5 ACC teams, or will it be kind of considered outside of it, since Notre Dame and Stanford have had this agreement for so long? Sloppy Joe says he'd like to see Notre Dame in Annapolis instead of Baltimore. Well, they obviously have played in, some different spots before as well, but they're never going to do that, because the Notre Dame game, when it's considered Navy's home game, that's Navy's big moneymaker. And that's why they play in the NFL stadiums, is that that is the game that makes Navy all of its money. So they're never going to play it in Annapolis, because the stadium is, yes, as John B says, too small. Back to the receivers. Andre says he thinks all the receivers are in wait-and-see mode with Notre Dame's offense this fall, even with one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. Could be. Again, I still think that after they get to see what this offense can be, and what wide receivers can look like in this offense, I think they'll ultimately start flipping some guys.
I think Andre actually brings up a good point. If you're a recruit, what is there to say, yes, I want to go to Notre Dame? Look at the wide receiver room and how it ended last year. Look at the offensive coordinator situation.
Right.
You're turning over on both of them. New OC, new wide receiver coach. You heard about everything that happened in the wide receiver room last year. So again, if you're a recruit, I'm not looking at that and being like, yes, that's definitely where I want to go, right? But I do believe that they are in a wait-and-see mode, because I just want to see, how this thing pans out. Is Denbrock going to hit the ground running? Is the offense going to hit the ground running? And I do believe that once, and I've said this, I feel like 5 times now throughout the show, but once people see, okay, yes, this is the Notre Dame offense that we have been kind of expecting.
Heads will turn.
Yeah, heads will turn.
Yep, completely agree. All right, Alabama has an over/under season win total of 9.5. So let's predict their record for the season. Couple of soft ones to start off with: Western Kentucky and USF. See any way that Alabama loses to either one of those teams?
No, that's a win.
Okay, so we're 2-0. How about at Wisconsin? Interesting road game.
I think that game will start a little close, but I think Alabama will find its way to kind of pull its way out. I'm going to say a win, like a 14-point win, 10-point win.
I agree. Alabama wins it. I don't think Wisconsin is quite there under Luke Fickell, so we're going to go 3-0 as Alabama wins at Wisconsin. Then they return home to start SEC play. How about this for an SEC opener? Alabama and Georgia in the first month of the season. I got Alabama taking the L on this one.
Yeah, I got Alabama losing as well. I think just first-year head coach, experienced Kirby Smart. I think Georgia wins that game.
So now they're 3-1. Go to Vanderbilt.
That's a win.
4-1. South Carolina.
That's a win.
5-1. At Tennessee.
That's a win.
It's a win, but I think it's going to be a tussle. I think it's going to be a close one. So now what do we have them? 6-1?
Yes.
Then they have Missouri. Is Missouri going to be able to come anywhere close to what they did last year?
I just think that I don't think they're gonna be as good as last year, but I don't think they're gonna be bad. I still think they're gonna be a good team. I just don't see them beating Alabama. What you have to realize is the new Alabama, head coach, he's going to, like, he was a good coach at Washington, right? Had success at Washington. He's coming to Alabama with better players. So I don't question the X's and O's and that sort of stuff. I just kind of question, is the Alabama product still the same?
How close
right?
is it going to look? Yeah. I mean, he's obviously inheriting a program that's still stocked with talent. Really, it's going to come down to the difference potentially in how DeBoer prepares compared
I just
to
think are the players going to be bought in to a first-year head coach and fully believe that they are being led down the right path, right? Because it's like with Nick Saban, it's Nick Saban. The guy wins championships. You're not questioning what Nick Saban is doing. Everyone's bought in.
Right. So they're 8-1 after winning against Missouri, and then they go to LSU.
As much as this is going to pain some people, I think LSU is going to win this game.
I do too. I've got LSU beating Bama. Nussmeier, and I think so. So that makes them 8-2. Is that right?
Yes.
Mercer 9-2.
9-2.
At Oklahoma, and then they finish with the Iron Bowl in their last 2 games.
I have them losing to Oklahoma and beating Auburn.
I think they'll split those. I'm not sure exactly which one. I want to see what kind of Oklahoma team Brent Venables rolls out there this year, but I think they're splitting as well. So that makes them 9-3. So 9.5 was the over-under. So
it's a sharp line.
We've got them under. I think we've been under on most of the ones that we've predicted together this year. All right, so 9 wins for Alabama. Vince and I talked yesterday about how Bears head coach Matt Eberflus is the Vegas favorite to win the NFL Coach of the Year award with plus 900 odds. Others, Robert Saleh and new Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh are next at plus 1,100. Packers head coach Matt LaFleur plus 1,200. Raheem Morris in Atlanta and Houston's DeMeco Ryans plus 1,300. Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon and Detroit head coach Dan Campbell have plus 1,500 odds. Who would you put your bet on to win Coach of the Year this year out of that?
This is an easy one. Look at the track record. Look at the guy who goes to place in place and uplifts the program, goes to college football playoffs, NFL playoffs. It's Jim Harbaugh. It's no doubt Jim Harbaugh. And the reason why it's Jim Harbaugh is he's a better coach and he's walking into more talent with it. The Chargers have enough talent. They've just been hurt and they need an offensive line. So what do? They draft the best offensive lineman in the entire draft, maybe of this decade. And Herbert's going to be healthy. They have the pieces there, and Harbaugh's the better coach. So I think this is easily Harbaugh.
If I'm going straight up value based on the odds that we're getting, I might go with my dude who's cranking his Metallica and he's out there treading water and just waiting to wear you down. Dan Campbell. I like those plus 1,500 odds that Dan Campbell has. They were actually replaying the Hard Knocks from a couple of years ago this morning on NFL Network. So I got to see a couple of Dan Campbell's
biting people's legs
speeches. Yeah, that's right. We're going to bite your leg off and everything else. So I do. I like me some Dan Campbell, until the Lions have to play the Cowboys, which is going to happen again this season, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken. So that would be my value pick. But I mean, plus 1,100 is still really good with Jim Harbaugh as well. And I completely agree. I think that he's going to come in and the Chargers are going to be a playoff team this year. And he's going to end up, that'll be a bigger turnaround than what Dan Campbell had since the Lions were already in the playoffs last year. So I think that Jim Harbaugh is the guy to pick on that. I agree with what you're saying. So speaking of Hard Knocks, on the Giants offseason Hard Knocks, their general manager, Shane, I can't think of it, Joe Schoen, I didn't write it down here. He calls Saquon Barkley and tells him that they would let Barkley test the free agent market rather than slap the franchise tag. on him. Barkley, of course, ultimately ended up signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you think that Schoen made the right decision to let him test the waters rather than, keep him around for at least another year under the franchise tag?
I do believe that he did make the right decision because, look, Saquon Barkley is 27 years old. He will be turning 20. Oh, he just turned 27 years old. Sorry. And so if you give him a contract extension of, let's say, at least 3 or 4 years, that gets him into his 30s. I am absolutely haunted and spooked by that Ezekiel Elliott contract. And I didn't believe it. I was so skeptical on, well, you don't give running backs a second contract. Okay, what happened to Le'Veon Bell, too? Gave him a second contract, right? And so because of, if I'm running a football team and I know that what's going to give my team the best chance, that's not giving a lot of money to a running back on a second contract. And I think it's also, I think he actually
did one with an injury as well.
That's what I mean. We're talking about a running back that's already had an injury. And I get it. He's gone over 1,000 yards 3 times, but that's fresh legs. You know what I mean? That's not 30-year-old legs, right? And so the part that was admirable to me is that he allowed him to go out and test the waters. He just didn't slap the franchise tag on him, because I do believe Saquon did. Just because you're not willing to give someone that contract doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given the opportunity to go out and earn that contract for themselves. So I thought the situation was handled perfectly, but at the end of the day, I'm not giving that second contract out just because it's not worth it. You can draft a guy that's faster, quicker, and the ability to kind of, teach some things too.
Well, and, look, part of the conversation that they had, I can't remember if it was necessarily the same episode or the episode before, even when they were talking about Barkley, was, look, they've got a lot of other needs, and they won 6 games last year. Now, granted, their starting quarterback was injured for more than half the season last year, so that plays into it as well after they were a playoff team the year before. But when you've got as many needs as the Giants have, why would you want to lock up that kind of money in a running back when essentially, the running back, the NFL treats running backs like a dime a dozen, right? And for all the reasons that you just laid out there, a 27-year-old running back, second contract, there's not a lot of value in that. I think they made the right decision as well to just let him walk. I mean, obviously it stings a little bit more that he goes to a division rival, but there's not much that you can do about that when you're talking about free agency. He can ultimately go wherever he wants. So you can't control where he's going to go. But financially and everything else, I think it was the right decision. Same episode of Hard Knocks. Giants head coach, they're at the combine. Giants head coach Brian Daboll said he thinks that he could run a 7.0 40 time, a 7.0 or better in the 40. The rest of the Giant staff told him, no way. So my question to you, Jesse, Mr. Former linebacker, could you run a sub 740?
Yes, I could get under 6.
Really?
I could get under 6.
How much money do we have on this? Are we going to live stream this? I want to see this happen.
I guarantee it. Guarantee. I would be under 6. Rich Eisen runs a 5.98, a 6 flat in suit pants. I can run under a 6, 100%.
My only question personally would be, like, would my hamstring pop when I get, because I've had a history of hamstring issues. You've seen me now, right? Like, you remember, like, back in the day, the old guy's a little quicker than you thought, right?
Yeah. If you stay fully healthy, you could get under 7.
I think that I could too. If I'm healthy and I've got time to kind of work on the hamstrings a little bit, get them warm. Hamstring doesn't pop, like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. They were kind of messing around because it was when Xavier Worthy was running his record-setting 40 time. Daboll was like, I think he was like, said something like, if I started off at the 20,
would I still lose?
Could I beat him? Would I still lose? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, where would I have to stand to have a chance to win? And they were like the 35.
I did not see that. That's pretty funny though. I could definitely get under 6 right now. I might go outside and have Naomi time me and video it.
Hit the street, see what you can do. So Scott's Scott played like a champion, apologizing for the name misspelling.
No, it's not. I never take offense to it. I just think it's funny that my name is on banners and on, you know what I mean? It's like, it's out there. It's no, if I ever say it and you feel like I'm mad, I promise you I'm not. My great grandfather's name was Jesse and he spelled it with an I.
Right. And that's who Jesse is named after. But my grandpa, your great grandfather, didn't necessarily like the I, so we took it out. It confused your grandpa for a little bit on the spelling. You know, the name is obviously the same, but there is no
I just like to give people a hard time because I do feel like, I mean, literally, you can see it right now.
Right. All right, a few that I'm going to slip in here from DK at the end, some of what he started off with. He says, Ted wins rookie poster of the year. What am I missing on that?
I think maybe poser.
Ted Power.
In the chat?
Okay, gotcha. Rookie poster. So he's like the rookie of the year in terms of posting, basically, because he's come in hot this week. Okay, that makes more sense now that I've kind of thought that out. Another one from DK. Sean gets Tommy the job as women's basketball bus driver.
He's got the experience.
He does have the experience. There are not too many places where the basketball team actually has to bus, though, these days. I guess they do bus back and forth.
To the airport?
From Purcell to the airport. That's about it. So, Jesse will have 3 kids by 2032. In or out on that?
Out.
Okay, Jesse's saying no. And then Salty will host the new IB show, ILO Ryan, called The Great One on One, where Salty has just a conversation with himself in a mirror. I'll go in on this.
I'll go in. I don't know how many people are watching, though. That probably happens on a day-to-day basis if we're being honest.
Right. Salty, I think he checked out a while ago, but he said, why is it that receivers like Williams and Collins can see the value of being in this offense, but high school receivers can't? Well, high school, maybe not seeing the big picture just yet.
Well, high school is going to be wooed, you know? Like it's give me the most money. Tell me I'm going to have 1,000 yards and 50 catches and, you know, like.
What can you promise me?
What can you promise me? And then if it hasn't been done and it's not on the field, then what are they supposed to believe?
Yeah. And I think these veteran guys like this, Williams and Collins, because they have experience, they're probably going to come in with better NIL deals right away as well. You know, let's just be honest, because again, Notre Dame's not going to pay a bunch of money up front to high school kids. You're going to have NIL opportunities, but I think that these older guys, because of the experience that they've got, they're going to come in with even bigger opportunities right away. Anthony, by the way, going back to the Paul Skeens conversation against the Brewers, Jesse, in case you missed it, 7 shutout innings, no hits, 11 strikeouts and 1 walk. ERA now at 1.9, making the starter in the All-Star game, baby.
Looks like with that stat line, he could have been pitching opening day, but, you know.
Come on, service time manipulation. You know it's still a real thing. So
yeah. You want to be rewarded? Give me the full body of work.
I agree with what John is saying. Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in the National League. He might be the best pitcher in all of baseball.
No.
Excuse me. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. So appreciate everybody for being here today. It was a nice, civil, kind of easygoing day with no TP in the chat tonight. So thank your lucky stars for that. Ted, you're welcome back anytime. You know, just be a little quieter. That's all you have to do.
Hey, you guys should for some homework. Well, no one really will care in this chat besides a few people, but Google MLB ERA leaders and go to the MLB website and tell me where you see Paul Skeens.
Oh boy. You're going to tell me that he doesn't show up because he doesn't have
doesn't qualify
yet? Okay. All right. Scott, by the way, with some advice to you, Jesse, about getting married. Spend more on the honeymoon than the wedding. Spend more time on planning how your marriage will work than planning the wedding.
This is very nice advice, Scott.
Might want to
Thank you.
screenshot that.
I know. That's a good one.
It's very good sage advice.
He felt bad. He's like, how can I get back on the good graces?
That's right.
I got to
Even
drop
for a
some
New
knowledge.
For a New York guy, he's coming in hot with that. I like it. All right. Well, hit the like button before you leave, and we will be back tomorrow to finish off the week. We are 20 days away from the start of Notre Dame training camp. So we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.